The ranch lay wide and quiet under the open sky. Dry land stretched far in every direction, broken only by wooden fences and low hills. The wind moved slowly through the grass, carrying dust and the smell of animals. This place had seen many horses come and go, but one horse had changed the mood of everyone who worked there. The stallion stood alone inside a strong fence. He was tall, dark, and powerful. His coat shone under the sun, and his eyes stayed sharp and alert. His muscles were tight, ready to move at any moment. The workers kept their distance. They spoke about him in careful voices, as if the horse could understand every word. This stallion had a long story. Many riders tried to train him. Some used ropes. Some used force. Some tried kindness for a short time and then gave up. Every time, the result was the same. The horse fought back. He kicked. He pulled free. He threw men to the ground. A few were hurt badly. After that, no one wanted to go near him. Because of this, the ranch owners made a decision. They would give the stallion to a cowboy named Ben. Ben worked alone most of the time. He took small jobs. He did not complain. He never asked for more than he needed. The owners believed the stallion would be Ben's problem now. If Ben failed, it would not affect the ranch. When Ben arrived, the workers watched closely. Ben was not young, but not old. His face showed lines from years under the sun. His clothes were simple and worn. His boots were old but clean. He walked slowly, with steady steps. There was no fear in his eyes, only calm. One worker pointed toward the stallion. "That one is dangerous," he said. Ben nodded. He did not argue. He did not smile. He simply walked closer to the fence. The stallion felt the movement and lifted his head. His ears turned forward. He pulled against the rope tied to the post. Dust rose under his hooves. His breath came out strong and loud. The workers stepped back without thinking. Ben stopped a few steps away. He did not touch the fence. He did not raise his voice. He stood still and waited. The stallion stared at him. His body stayed tense. His tail moved sharply. Every part of him showed warning. Ben spoke softly. His voice was low and even. He said simple words. He told the horse he was not there to fight. He said there was no hurry. The horse did not relax, but he did not charge. He stayed where he was, watching every move. Time passed slowly. The sun moved higher. Sweat formed on Ben's brow, but he did not wipe it away. He stayed patient. When the stallion pulled again, Ben did not pull back. He stepped to the side, giving the rope a little space. The workers whispered among themselves. They expected shouting. They expected force. They saw neither. After a long while, Ben stepped back and sat on a low rock. He turned his body slightly away from the horse. This surprised everyone. It was not what trainers usually did. The stallion stopped pulling. He stood still, breathing heavy. His eyes followed Ben closely. Ben stayed seated. He did not look directly at the horse. He spoke again, calm and steady. He talked about the wind. He talked about the land. His words were not commands. They were simple sounds meant to show peace. The stallion lowered his head just a little. His breathing slowed. The workers noticed and grew quiet. As the day went on, Ben stood and slowly loosened the rope. He did not remove it. He only gave the horse more room. The stallion tested it once, then stopped. When evening came, the sun painted the sky with soft color. The workers began to leave. One asked Ben if he wanted help. Ben shook his head. "I will stay," he said. That night, Ben did not return to his hut. He laid a blanket on the ground near the fence. Not too close. Not too far. He wanted the horse to see him and feel safe. The stallion stayed standing for a long time. He watched Ben carefully. Every small sound made his ears move. Ben stayed still. He did not try to touch the horse. He did not sleep at once. The stars filled the sky. The land grew quiet. Slowly, the stallion shifted his weight. He lowered his head. He did not lie down, but his body no longer looked ready to fight. Ben closed his eyes for a moment. He smiled softly, not because he had won, but because he felt the beginning of trust. No one else saw it. No one else felt it. But something important had started that night. The untamable stallion had met a man who did not want to break him. He wanted to know him. Morning came slowly to the ranch. The sky turned pale as the sun rose over the hills. The land felt cool, and the grass held drops of water from the night. Ben woke early and sat up quietly. He did not move fast. He did not want to startle the stallion. The horse stood where he had been all night. His head was low, but his eyes were open. He had not run. He had not fought the fence. This alone surprised the workers who arrived later that morning. Ben stood up and stretched his arms. He kept his movements slow and calm. He spoke softly to the stallion, greeting him like an old friend. He took a few steps closer and stopped again. The horse lifted his head but did not pull away. Ben brought a bucket of fresh water and placed it near the fence. Then he stepped back. He did not push the horse to drink. He waited. The stallion walked forward after some time. His steps were careful. He stopped once and looked at Ben. Ben stayed still. After a moment, the horse lowered his head and drank. This small act felt like a big step. As the sun climbed higher, Ben began his work. He cleaned the area near the fence. He fixed a loose board. He moved slowly and spoke now and then so the horse always knew where he was. The stallion followed him with his eyes. His body stayed alert, but there was less tension than before. Later that day, Ben brought food. He held it in his hand and walked toward the fence. The stallion stepped back at first. Ben stopped. He placed the food on the ground and moved away. The horse waited. Then he walked forward and ate. His ears stayed pointed toward Ben, but his movements were calmer. The workers watched from a distance. They shook their heads in disbelief. They had seen many trainers fail, but Ben was doing something different. He was not trying to win. He was trying to understand. In the afternoon, Ben took the rope in his hand. He did not pull it. He let it rest loose. He walked in a small circle, giving the stallion room. The horse followed the movement, turning slowly. There was no struggle. Ben stopped and spoke softly again. He lifted his hand slowly and held it out, not reaching, just offering his presence. The stallion moved closer by one step. Then, another. His nose stretched forward, smelling the air. He snorted once, then stayed still. Ben did not touch him. He smiled and lowered his hand. He knew this was enough for one day. That evening, Ben stayed again near the fence. He cooked a small meal and ate quietly. The stallion watched him the entire time. There was no anger in his eyes now, only caution mixed with interest. During the night, a loud sound echoed from far away. The stallion jumped and moved fast, pulling the rope tight. Dust rose under his hooves. Ben stood up at once, speaking calmly. He did not shout. He did not run. He stayed visible. He spoke steady words until the horse slowed. After a while, the stallion stopped moving. His breathing eased. He stood close to the fence, facing Ben. Ben stayed there until the horse settled again. Then he lay back down. The next morning, the ranch felt different. The stallion greeted the day with a low sound. Ben answered softly. When Ben stepped closer, the horse did not pull away. Ben reached out slowly and touched the stallion's neck for the first time. His hand rested there for a brief moment. The horse flinched, then stood still. This touch was gentle. It carried no force. Ben stepped back after that single moment. The workers could hardly believe it. Some walked closer to see with their own eyes. The stallion did not react badly. He watched them, but his focus stayed on Ben. Later, Ben led the stallion a short distance inside the fence. He walked beside him, not in front, not behind. The rope stayed loose. The horse followed. Every step felt careful. Every breath mattered. By the end of the day, the stallion stood calmly as Ben brushed his coat. The horse's body relaxed little by little. His eyes softened. Ben felt a deep sense of respect grow inside him. He did not see a wild beast. He saw a strong spirit that had never been treated with patience. As the sun set again, Ben rested near the fence. The stallion stood close, not tied tight, but choosing to stay. The ranch had given Ben a horse they believed was impossible. They did not know that trust, once started, could change everything. The third day began with strong wind across the ranch. The sky looked heavy, and clouds moved fast above the land. Ben stood early and watched the stallion. The horse stood calm, his head lifted toward the wind. His body no longer showed the sharp tension of before. He still stayed alert, but fear did not guide him now. Ben walked closer with slow steps. He spoke in a quiet voice. The stallion turned his head and listened. This simple act felt important. The horse was no longer ignoring him. Ben brought a soft cloth and brushed the stallion's neck again. The horse shifted his weight once but did not step away. Ben kept his hand steady and gentle. He brushed along the strong muscles, moving slowly. The stallion breathed out and stood still. The workers watched from a distance. Some felt uneasy. They remembered the injuries from the past. They did not trust the calm to last. But Ben trusted the moment. He knew trust grew step by step. Later that morning, Ben opened the gate inside the training area. It was wide and open. He did not pull the stallion inside. He walked through the gate himself and waited. The stallion looked at the open space. His ears moved back and forth. The land beyond the gate was new and uncertain. He stepped forward once, then stopped. Ben did not rush him. He waited with calm posture. After some time, the stallion stepped through the gate on his own. His steps were slow but sure. Inside the area, Ben walked in a gentle curve. The stallion followed. The rope stayed loose. There was no pulling. This alone showed how far they had come. Ben stopped and turned slightly away. This was his way of showing trust. The stallion walked closer until he stood beside Ben. They shared the same space without fear. As the day moved on, Ben introduced new sounds. He tapped the ground with his boot. He moved a cloth through the air. He spoke in calm tones. The stallion reacted at first, stepping back, but he did not panic. Each time, Ben stayed calm until the horse settled again. In the afternoon, dark clouds gathered. Thunder sounded far away. The wind grew stronger. The stallion lifted his head and shifted his feet. Storms often brought fear to animals. When the thunder grew louder, the stallion stepped fast, pulling the rope tight. Dust rose around him. The workers tensed, ready to step in. Ben raised his hand, asking them to stay back. He moved closer to the stallion and spoke with strength and calm. His voice stayed steady. He placed his hand on the horse's neck, firm but gentle. The stallion trembled. Another loud sound rolled across the sky. Ben stayed with him. He did not let go. He spoke through the noise. Slowly, the stallion's movements softened. His breathing slowed. He lowered his head. The storm continued, but fear no longer ruled him. Rain began to fall. Ben stayed with the stallion through the rain. Water ran down their backs. Neither moved away. When the storm passed, the land felt fresh and quiet. The stallion shook his body and stood close to Ben. He stayed by choice. That evening, Ben tried something new. He brought out a saddle. The workers held their breath. The stallion noticed it at once. His body grew tense again. Ben placed the saddle on the fence, far from the horse. He let the stallion look at it. He did not force the moment. The stallion stepped closer on his own. He sniffed the saddle. He pulled back once, then returned again. Ben praised him with a soft voice. After a long time, Ben lifted the saddle slowly and placed it near the stallion. The horse stood still. His ears stayed forward. His breathing stayed even. Ben touched the saddle to the stallion's side for a brief moment, then removed it. He did not push further. That night, Ben sat near the fence again. The stallion stood beside him, calm and steady. The ranch felt different now. The fear that once filled the place had faded. The workers spoke quietly among themselves. They no longer called the stallion dangerous. They called him strong. They called Ben patient. Ben looked at the horse and felt deep respect. He knew the journey was not over. Trust could be broken if handled poorly. But that night, under the quiet sky, the stallion rested close to him. For the first time in many years, the horse slept without fear. And Ben knew something rare was growing between them. The fourth day began with soft light spreading across the ranch. The air felt fresh after the storm from the night before. Ben woke early, as he always did. He sat up slowly and looked toward the stallion. The horse stood close to the fence, calm and steady. His head was low, and his body showed ease instead of tension. Ben stood and stretched. He spoke a quiet greeting. The stallion lifted his head and gave a low sound in return. This small response felt meaningful. It showed the horse was aware of Ben and comfortable with his presence. Ben brought water and food as usual. The stallion walked forward without fear and ate while Ben stood nearby. There was no pulling of the rope, no sharp movements. The workers who passed by stopped to watch. They whispered to each other in surprise. The horse that once scared them now stood peaceful. Later in the morning, Ben picked up the saddle again. He moved slowly and kept his body relaxed. He placed the saddle on the fence where the stallion could see it. The horse watched closely. His ears moved forward, but he did not step away. Ben waited. He let time do its work. After a while, Ben lifted the saddle and held it near the stallion's side. He did not rush. He let the horse smell it again. The stallion shifted once, then stood still. Ben gently placed the saddle on the horse's back. The stallion tensed for a moment, then relaxed. Ben did not tie it yet. He placed his hand on the horse's neck and spoke calmly. The horse breathed out and stood quiet. This moment felt important. The workers held their breath, ready for trouble. None came. Ben stepped back and let the stallion stand with the saddle. He walked around slowly, watching the horse's movement. The stallion took a few steps and stopped. He did not try to throw the saddle off. He simply adjusted to the weight. Ben smiled softly. He returned and slowly secured the saddle. Every movement was careful and smooth. The stallion accepted it. In the afternoon, Ben led the stallion inside the open training area again. The rope stayed loose. The stallion followed without resistance. They walked together in a gentle path. Ben turned left. The stallion turned with him. Ben stopped. The stallion stopped. Trust showed itself in these simple acts. As the sun climbed higher, Ben decided to take the next step. He placed his foot in the stirrup. The stallion noticed and grew alert. Ben paused at once. He spoke calmly and stepped back. He waited until the horse relaxed again. Then Ben tried again. Slowly, he placed weight on the stirrup. The stallion shifted but stayed calm. Ben did not climb on. He removed his foot and praised the horse with a soft voice. This pattern continued for a long time. Step. Pause. Calm. Trust. By evening, Ben placed his weight on the stirrup and leaned across the saddle. His body rested lightly on the horse's back. The stallion stood still. His ears turned back for a moment, then forward again. Ben stayed there briefly and then stepped down. He did not want to push too far. The workers could hardly believe what they were seeing. Some remembered the days when this horse could not be touched. Now he stood steady with a rider's weight. That night, Ben stayed near the stallion again. He brushed the horse and checked the saddle. The stallion stood quietly, enjoying the care. His eyes looked soft and calm. The next morning, Ben prepared for a full mount. The air felt still and quiet. The ranch seemed to hold its breath. Ben placed the saddle and secured it carefully. He led the stallion into the open area. He spoke softly and placed his foot in the stirrup. With slow and steady movement, he climbed onto the horse's back. The stallion froze at first. His muscles tightened. Ben sat light and calm. He did not pull the reins. He did not kick. He simply stayed balanced and spoke gently. The stallion took one step forward. Then another. Ben stayed calm. His body moved with the horse, not against him. The stallion walked slowly in a circle. Dust rose under his hooves. The workers watched in silence. The stallion did not panic. He did not fight. He walked with care, feeling the rider above him. Ben guided him with gentle pressure and calm voice. After a short time, Ben guided the stallion to stop. He sat still for a moment, then stepped down. He patted the horse's neck and praised him softly. The stallion lowered his head. He stayed close. That evening, the ranch felt changed. Fear had turned into respect. Doubt had turned into belief. The stallion was no longer called untamable. He was seen as a horse who needed patience and understanding. Ben knew the journey was still not finished. True partnership took time. But something strong had been built. The cowboy and the stallion stood side by side as the sun set. They were no longer strangers. They were becoming a team. The final day began with golden light spreading across the ranch. The land felt calm, as if it understood something special was about to happen. Ben stood near the stallion, brushing his coat with slow and steady hands. The horse stood relaxed, his head low and his breathing calm. The bond between them now felt strong and real. The workers gathered at a distance. Word had spread about the change in the stallion. People who once feared him now watched with quiet respect. They had seen the patience. They had seen the care. They had seen something rare. Ben placed the saddle gently on the stallion's back and secured it. The horse did not resist. He shifted slightly and then stood still. Ben spoke softly and patted his neck. The stallion answered with a low sound, calm and steady. Ben led him into the open land beyond the training area. This was new ground. Wide. Open. Free. The stallion lifted his head and looked around. His ears moved, catching every sound. The world felt bigger here. Ben mounted slowly and carefully. The stallion accepted the weight without fear. Ben sat balanced and relaxed. He did not rush. He let the horse take the first step. The stallion walked forward, slow and steady. His hooves touched the earth with care. Ben guided him gently, using soft pressure and calm words. They moved together, not as rider and animal, but as partners. As they walked farther from the ranch, the stallion began to trust his steps more. His walk grew smooth. His body stayed relaxed. Ben felt the strength beneath him, steady and willing. They reached a small hill and stopped. Ben let the stallion stand and look around. The land stretched far under the open sky. Wind moved through the grass. The moment felt peaceful. Ben leaned forward and rested his hand on the stallion's neck. He spoke softly, thanking him. The horse lowered his head slightly, accepting the touch. They turned back toward the ranch, moving at a calm pace. The workers watched them approach. Some smiled. Some shook their heads in disbelief. The horse that once could not be controlled now returned calmly with a rider on his back. Ben guided the stallion to a stop near the fence. He dismounted slowly and stood beside him. The stallion stayed close. He did not pull away. He did not step back. One of the ranch owners walked forward. He looked at the stallion and then at Ben. "I never thought this would happen," he said quietly. Ben nodded. "He was never wild," Ben replied. "He was just unheard." The owner looked at the horse again, seeing him with new eyes. That evening, the ranch gathered for a simple meal. Stories were shared. Laughter filled the air. The stallion stood nearby, calm and peaceful. Children watched him with wonder. No fear remained. Later, when the sky turned dark and stars appeared, Ben sat near the stallion as he had done since the first night. The horse stood beside him, close and steady. Ben thought about the journey. About the first day when everyone expected failure. About the slow steps. About the storms. About the patience that changed everything. The stallion rested his head near Ben. It was a quiet gesture, full of trust. In the days that followed, Ben and the stallion worked together across the land. They rode through fields and hills. They helped move cattle. They faced long days under the sun. Through it all, the stallion stayed loyal and calm. People from nearby places came to see the horse they once called untamable. They saw a strong and proud animal walking beside a calm cowboy. They saw what patience could do. Ben never took pride in the praise. He always said the same thing. "He taught me as much as I taught him." The stallion was no longer a problem passed from hand to hand. He had found a place where he belonged. He had found someone who listened. As seasons changed, the ranch grew stronger. Fear was replaced with understanding. Force was replaced with care. The cowboy and the stallion had changed more than each other. They had changed the way people saw strength. Strength was not control. Strength was trust. Under the wide sky, the cowboy and the stallion moved forward together, bound not by rope or fear, but by respect and quiet understanding. And that bond would last longer than any story told about danger.